Good evening, everyone. If you would, we are doing this course tonight on Mentimeter. If you are able to scan this code or log in on your phone with the prompt that's at the top of the screen, please feel free to do so. Also, if you want to take some time to go get maybe a notepad and a pen to take notes, now is a great opportunity. And if you have dinner on the stove, grab a plate. You have a good night.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, good evening.
Don't I look amazing in this field of dew-covered grass? Okay, so hold on one second. Let me figure out how to, this is going to be quite interesting for me. All right, I'm not sure how to turn on the Do Not Disturb on my phone. Is that it? No, that's not it. Okay, so we're going to try this without Do Not Disturb. So, good evening, everybody. This is going to be a first for me. I'm actually teaching part of this class from my vehicle. If you have been watching the weather, you may know that the city is activating our warming centers tonight. And I serve at the warming centers and we open at 7. So I had to come here so that I wouldn't have to get in my car and drive in the middle of the class. So I came here a little early. My name is Leah, and I want to make sure we have, okay, we do. So you can go ahead and scan if you have a cell phone or an iPad. There is a QR code on the screen in front of you. You can go ahead and scan that QR code. If you do not have a cell device or an iPad, you can go to menti.com. That's M as in Mary, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, T as in Thomas, I as in Isaac.com, and type in the code that's on the screen in front of you. It's 37888771. Or again, you can scan the code. Now, I will say this. I like to, whenever we use Menti in a course, I like to make sure people know so that they don't feel any anxiety or anything about it. If you cannot figure it out, please do not worry about it. It is not the biggest deal ever. It's not the end of the world. If you can't, if you're not sure how to scan a QR code, or maybe you don't have a mobile device that scans codes, or you do, but you don't know how to do it, whatever it is, it's okay. Don't worry about it. If you know how to do it, we find it to be a bit engaging and interactive, and we try to inject a little interaction into our courses. But if you can't, don't worry about it. And let's see, we've got some people joining in, so that's perfect. We'll leave it up for a couple more moments while I introduce myself and my team. So my name is Leah LaRue, and I'm the Director of Neighborhood Planning Units for the City of Atlanta's Department of City Planning. I'm joined tonight by a few of my colleagues, and again, I'm using Zoom from my mobile device, so it limits my ability to see all the beautiful faces. I do see our Program Operations Manager, Ida Santana. She's waving. I'll say hi for her. And we also have with us our program coordinator senior of training and education initiatives, Samantha.
Salutations, everyone.
We also have Daniel, our resources and support manager, Daniel Vasquez.
Good evening, everybody.
And I believe I saw, yes, I did, one of our newest employees to join our team, Morgan Thomason. She's our project manager 3. Morgan?
Hello.
All right. Guys, is there anyone else from our team that I'm missing? No, great. Wonderful. Okay, so that QR code is still up and you can please scan in if you will. You'll just grab, if you're on an iPhone, I can tell you how to do it. You open up the camera on your iPhone and aim it towards that code. You should see a little link that will pop up and you'll just tap that link and it'll take you to where you want to go. Don't worry if you're not sure about what you see on the phone. It's good. If you scanned it and you click the link, you're in the right place. All right, we can move on. Sam, please. So welcome to NPU University. This is our class for elected officers. And I will ask that you please keep your microphones muted at all times. This is a good time to grab a pen and paper to keep notes. Of course, feel free to grab a snack if you like to snack while you learn. And of course, keep your camera turned on to receive course credit. If you're taking this class for our Citizen Planner Certificate Program, or if you're taking this class for the Community Impact Grant, training incentive, or for any other reason that requires credit, please make sure your camera is on or else you will not receive course credit. If you have a question during Q&A, please raise your hand to get in the queue, and I'll show you how to do that momentarily. And of course, all questions must be relevant to course content. That is our golden rule. We want to always make sure that we are using your time wisely and not taking up everyone else's time with questions or commentary that is not relevant to the course content, that will not be beneficial to others in the class. All right, so at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a button that says reactions. If you click on that button, you'll see a little pop-up box, and at the bottom of that box, you'll see a button that says raise hand. You'll want to click that button in order to raise your hand, and that will put you in the queue. Once you are in the queue, we will see that your hand has been raised, and we will gladly call on you to ask your question during the appropriate time. So I've already introduced myself. I'll be teaching the first part of this class, followed by Daniel Vasquez, our resources and support manager. If you are an NPU chair, you probably already know Daniel. He will be your bestie, or at least your City of Atlanta bestie, for the time that you serve in your role. That also applies if you are not an NPU chair. If you're an officer, an NPU officer, especially if you're a new chair, you will definitely be relying pretty heavily on Daniel and his expertise and willingness to serve. Daniel goes above and beyond. Those that have been around for a while know that. I always tell people, do louder for Daniel than you do for me. And everyone, Daniel is certainly one of our greatest assets and our NPU leader's biggest fan and supporter. He loves the work that he does, and I think it's motivated a little bit by the love that y'all have for him. All righty, moving right along. So this slide talks a little bit about our mission, and I love this quote from Mayor Dickens. I'm going to ensure that we have a city where people are engaged and excited about participating in their communities. Really great quote from our 61st mayor of Atlanta, Mayor Andre Dickens. I'll pause for a moment so that you can read the mission of the Department of City Planning, but you'll see in particular that part of our mission is for thriving neighborhoods. We want to facilitate options that bring about thriving neighborhoods. and of course, resident involvement in all of the work that we do. We get up, my team and I get up every morning so that we can promote resident involvement in all of our work. This is important. If you're taking screenshots or anything like that, you can go ahead and screenshot this. I think we do send out we do send out the presentation at the end of the class. So you'll receive this presentation via email. But this is really important. As our team grows, it is so important that you get to know the members of our team who can support your needs and serve your community appropriately. I find that, in fact, we just had a scenario the other day where I was talking to the team about why it's so important that people call the right people. Now, listen, if you don't know who to call, most people default to either myself or to Daniel, and that's fine if you're not sure who to call. But it definitely helps if you do know who to call. If you've got a question about anything related to NPU University, Samantha is definitely your person. If you have a question about our outreach and engagement efforts, Tony is your person. If anything needs to be escalated, or you've got policy recommendations or anything that needs to be escalated, you can definitely call me for those needs. And then, of course, we have a team of project managers as well that are working on special projects, etc. This speaks to our goals. When we created these 4 goals, I definitely expected that those would be the goals for the year. And then that was in 2019. And then in 2020, I continued those same goals and thought that, okay, so for 2021, we'll get some new goals. But for now, we're going to keep the same goals. And here we are in 2024, continuing on these same goals. Our work is guided heavily by our endeavor to share information, increase awareness, bolster our effectiveness and the effectiveness of the NPU system, and of course, improve our processes. It's a much heavier lift than I initially thought, but we're continuing to work to promote those goals. So in today's class, we're going to cover intros, which I think we just did, officer roles, agendas and meetings, record keeping, meeting minutes, and do a bit of Q&A. If you just came in and you missed our intro or you didn't get a chance to scan the QR code, please take a moment now and scan that code. I'll give you about 30 seconds to grab your cell phone or your iPad or some other mobile device and scan the code that you see at the bottom left of the screen. I think you should be able to do that by opening your camera. At least I know for sure on an iPhone, you can do that by opening your camera and pointing it towards the QR code. You'll see a little pop-up link, and then you'll tap that link. All right, so I won't spend too much time on this slide because I assume that just by being here as an elected officer, this class was not advertised to the public audience. It was an invitation to this course was only sent to our elected officers. So I'm going to assume that most of you know the purpose of an NPU. But the NPUs, the neighborhood planning units, are tasked with reviewing and making recommendations on proposed development, on applications for alcohol licenses, on special events, and amendments to the city's zoning ordinance and comprehensive development plan, and a few other items as well. The system, of course, was established in 1974. And if you do some quick math in your head, you'll realize that that makes this our 50th anniversary. We're so excited to celebrate the 50th anniversary this year of the neighborhood planning unit system. The system was established in 74 by our first Black mayor, Mayor Maynard Jackson, so that residents would be able to participate in the planning of their communities, specifically in the comprehensive development plan, which I will point out the Department of City Planning is currently beginning the work on our CDP update. CDP being the Comprehensive Development Plan. We'll be kicking off the CDP on February 29th, I believe is the date, but you'll get plenty of information about that. I'm quite happy, excited about the direction that the department is heading in terms of getting the word out. We are definitely going further than we have in years past to make sure that we solicit participation from residents all over the city. We want really diverse participation, and we want to provide a little bit more support and handholding to those that may be unfamiliar with the CDP process. But we are beginning in the next 30 days, we're beginning the work for our comprehensive development plan update. Of course, once an MPU has voted on an item, that voting recommendation is then submitted to the relevant body, which could be the zoning review board, the board of zoning adjustment, the license review board, or the mayor's office. Generally, that's where those recommendations go. But ultimately to city council or to the mayor's office. And those deliberative bodies take into consideration multiple factors, including the community's official recommendation. Okay, so I'm not going to read from this slide, but you will, if you don't already have, you will receive as part of the course materials, you will receive a copy of the ethical guidelines for MPU officers. There is a section of the city's code of ordinances for MPU officers. I want to make that clear because I find that a lot of people, even folks that have been around for years and years, do not realize that the city does have ethical guidelines for MPU officers. I will also point out something that I think is important. Those guidelines apply only to only to MPU officers. Those guidelines do not apply to any MPU members who are not officers. Including right now, I often receive complaints from members of the public, from applicants, even from MPU officers and leaders, and from other MPU members wanting to report a member for doing X, Y, and Z. And this section of the code only applies to NPU officers. I think I said that about 4 times, and I did that intentionally because I want to make sure that you know. That said, there are certainly consequences for violating these ethical guidelines, and I want to make sure that you receive a copy of it. And if you have any questions about that at all, just let us know once you receive the copy of the ethical guidelines. I encourage you to read it though, and make sure that you are in compliance with the guidelines. The purpose, of course, is just to protect the integrity of the recommendation, to make sure that when we receive a recommendation, it is not informed by anyone's financial or other interests in the matter. All right, so if you grab your device, your cell phone or your iPad or other device, you should see on it this question. What responsibility does a chair have in terms of order during meetings? And the options would be creating chaos for entertainment. Wow. Keeping order, encouraging chaos for creativity, or ignoring meeting order. These are quite interesting options. Well, it looks like everyone got that one right. Thank goodness. And indeed, the correct answer is encouraging order. All righty. Moving right along. Okay, so officer roles. This section of the presentation this section of the description comes from Robert's Rules of Order, and it describes the chairperson's duty as presiding at all the meetings and events of their MPU. The chair will call special meetings when required and permitted by bylaws, and shall perform other duties necessary to fulfill the purposes of their MPU. The vice chair, of course, serves in the absence of the chairperson. They'll preside at meetings if the chairperson is not present, or if the chairperson steps down from their seat for the purpose of engaging in debate or conflict of interest, or for some other reason, they will give the powers of the chair to the vice chairperson. It is the chairperson's deputy, and they perform on the chairperson's behalf any duties that the chair may have. The treasurer, and not all, to be clear, not all MPUs have treasurers, but those that do, the treasurer is responsible for managing financial receipts, disbursements, accounting in accordance with bylaws. They also prepare and provide financial statements to the organization and track all deposits, expenses, and other financial dealings. Most MPUs don't deal with funds at all outside of the community impact grant. Some MPUs do pursue funding from other sources, and may have some even collect donations. I know of a few that collect donations, so some of them do have treasurers for those reasons. And the parliamentarian serves as an advisor to the chair on the proper conduct of a meeting. They assist the chair and the executive committee and members of their MPU with adherence to the bylaws and to Robert's Rules of Order. And all of these roles, I will point out, perhaps with the exception of chair, all of these roles can vary a bit. Actually, even the chairperson, even that role varies a bit from MPU to MPU. It just depends on the MPU and their bylaws. The sergeant at arms assures orderly and productive MPU meetings, and their tasks include preparing the meeting space for those that meet in person, keeping order, and of course, maintaining property and record keeping. This, again, is not an office that we find in every MPU. There are some that have them and some that do not. And the secretary, we saved the best for last, the biggest job in all of the MPUs. That role is responsible, well, arguably the biggest job. That role is responsible for taking minutes of regular monthly meetings and making them available to membership 1 week prior to the next scheduled monthly meeting. They maintain the membership roster, and they're the custodian of all the voting tools, any that the MPU may utilize. They also distribute communications to membership and carry out other duties prescribed from time to time in the bylaws. Sam, let's just skip to the next. Let's go right here to the agendas and meeting calendar. And I think this is Daniel's part, right?
Yes, this is me.
Okay, let's move on to the agendas, please.
All right, good evening, everybody. I will lead the presentation on the MPU agendas. I believe that Mentimeter is doing something fun right now.
Sam, can I get you to move ahead to the next slide?
All right. So
Perfect. Thank you.
at every MPU meeting, we like to staff the meeting with an assigned MPU planner. But we put a slide of the City of Atlanta holiday closings to remind the MPU we are not able to staff the meetings where your meeting is happening on an actual holiday, such as New Year's Day, MLK Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Labor Day, etc. The list is there. So if one of your meetings falls under one of these holidays, we do ask that you consider rescheduling your meeting to a day that is not a City of Atlanta holiday. And this slide is also useful for a lot of folks like me that can't keep up with when a holiday is actually taking place. So I print this out and keep this at my desk. So hopefully this slide will be good for you guys in the future. So we've included a snapshot of a month and what it looks like in terms of MPU meetings happening. You will see that for the with the exception of Fridays, there's an MPU meeting happening at one point or another. And my team's main task is making sure that every MPU has an agenda at the time that is actually meeting. So we specifically, myself and Kip Dunlap, we are agenda making machines. Can I get the next slide, please, Sam? All right. So this next slide provides a snapshot of what the actual agenda cycle is. If you take a look at the slide on the right-hand side, we actually isolate MPU-M because it falls neatly on a Monday. MPU-M meets on the fourth Monday of every month. And that it's colored like a pea green soup color at the bottom there on January the 25th. And the process of creating the agenda actually takes place 10 business days prior to the meeting. If you'll see on the 11th, the draft period begins in that whole section colored yellow. And this is the time that I will send the MPU chair and the MPU zoning contact the draft copy of the agenda for purposes of editing. And by the time that the close of business day of the 6th day prior to the meeting, in this case the 15th, that's when we will at that point close the editing portion. And on the following business day, which falls on the 18th, which is the following Monday, this is when we will actually publish the agenda. And a copy of the finalized agenda will be sent to the MPU chair, as well as the MPU zoning contact and the MPU's assigned plan. Next, please, Samantha. All right. So just to give a purview of what the MPU agenda is comprised of, the first page contains information such as meeting information, the date and the remote access information or physical location of the meeting. There is also contact information for the MPU chair, as well as the MPU assigned planner, and also the Department of City Planning contacts for our office. And the agenda proper will have things such as presentations by city departments, agenda items such as presentations and voting items. And at the bottom, we will also list a list of bylaws for the MPU, as well as the attendance requirements if your MPU requires a specific amount of attendance prior to a member being able to vote. Next, please. All right. So the next page provides the matters for voting. And this section is traditionally made up of permit applications, where city policy requires a recommendation from the MPU. You will commonly see applications for special events, alcohol licenses, rezonings, zoning variances, as well as citywide legislation. Next, please. The next section on the MPU agenda is the matters for review and comment section. Here you will commonly see subdivision applications and also proposed legislation if the Office of Zoning and Development has requested for the MPU to review and comment on legislation 1 month, and then the legislation comes back the next month for a vote. You will see the legislation first be featured under review and comment, and then jump to the voting matters for voting section the following month. You also see applications that are adjacent to the MPU within 300 feet. Oftentimes you'll see applications that are actually featured in another MPU, but they're very, very close to the borderline between your MPU and that MPU. And one more type of application you will see under matters for review and comment are appeals. And these are usually applicants are appealing a decision of a city department. MPUs, of course, are invited to submit comments, but the city is not expecting a recommendation from the MPU on these items. Next, Sam. Thank you. Public notices and announcements. This is a section where we feature non-voting legislation such as name change legislation. Sometimes a door at City Hall will be renamed as an honorary with an honorary name. You would see legislation pertaining to that here. Or whenever we change fees on an application that has to, per the code, it has to be listed on the MPU agenda for the public to know. We also include announcements and reminders. You'll see certainly throughout the year as your bylaws vote becomes impending, you will see a reminder for the MPUs to vote and turn in their bylaws before the end of September. And also you may see reminders about your election. There are also important notices. You will see some of the Plan A notices being included in the public notice section for the agendas. You'll see those. I believe that the agendas that are rolling out in February will have those. And also items that are required by code to be included for notification. One of the other things you'll see here is the non-campaigning blurb. Usually when there is an election of sorts, we like to include that blurb in the in this section to allow the chairs to point to any disruptor that they're not allowed to do that, as it says at the bottom of the agenda, and then you can point to that. All right. So following your meeting, there are some post-meeting tasks that our office will collect. We collect attendance sheets from the meeting, signed voting forms that are turned in by your assigned planner. Also some types of applications such as alcohol license applications and event applications will require the chair to individually sign and complete and date and send those back to me. I provide those to the chairs individually. If the MPU has minutes that they would like for us to store, this is a perfect time for the MPU to provide those back to us. MPUs are not required to provide us with meeting minutes, but for data keeping purposes, it's always smart to do so. At this point, our office will route the MPU recommendations to the deliberating boards, and we also update the MPU dashboard, which is a public-facing tool out to the public, and we will update the information in the dashboard so anyone that missed your meeting the night before can see how the MPU voted. And the based on the voting report from your meeting this month, I will be able to make the draft for next month's agenda. Sam? Thank you. All right, so just to illustrate some of the tasks that we partake in after your meeting, there is an example of a physical attendance sheet. Those are rare nowadays, but there's a couple of MPUs that do have an in-person element to their meetings, and we do collect those afterwards. The form in the middle is a voting form for an alcohol permit. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but if you zoom in towards the bottom of the page, you will see that the chair went ahead and marked a vote of approval for this alcohol permit and date and signed it. I co-signed and date the form, and we send that back to the Atlanta Police Department, and they can continue processing this application. The planner's report form is actually an online form now, but for those that are nostalgic to see a sheet of paper, I know sometimes I am. I like to call myself Team Papyrus. We actually have a PDF version that people can fill out, and that is what is illustrated on the right. Samantha, next. That is Jim Martin's form, indeed. All right, we have a Mentimeter question, and I am going to be really hip and cool and try to lead technology. The day following the MPU meeting, the Department of City Planning completes which of the following tasks? I believe your phone is giving you all sorts of fun options, but I am going to peek into my computer and try to read that. Okay, I cannot do that.
So the options are gather attendance sheets, process voting forms, route NPU recommendations to the deliberating boards, update the NPU dashboard, or all of the above. There you go, Daniel.
Thank you, Sam. 2020 vision right there.
I think everybody answered, but
all right, everybody answered. Yay! So we had 14, all of the above. If you picked all of the above, you are indeed correct. Oh, we have a last minute vote coming in there. Everyone's paying attention. All right, now we have the
Daniel,
hello. Yes, somebody said something. Sure. Does anybody have any questions?
I do. This is Amy Stout.
Hey, Miss Stout.
Hi, Daniel. Did you just say, is the process changing?
Which process, ma'am?
You said this is online form.
Yes. Well, no. It hasn't changed. When the planner creates the voting report, they access an online form, which then creates a PDF, and that is what is mailed to the chairs. But there are some planners that don't like that form, so they use like a Word file, and that was what we were showing on the right-hand side.
So nothing's changed for 2024.
Yeah, no, nothing's on your end. You're seeing the same thing. No
Okay.
changes for the chairs.
And what if I don't get my voting report from the planner?
Well, whenever I don't receive the voting report from the planner, because I do ask the planners to turn in their voting report both to the MPU chair and myself the day before after the meeting by 10 a.m. I do send them a reminder that they may have forgotten and that they need to go ahead and get that done.
Thank you.
Terry Ross also has his hand raised. Mr. Ross?
Yeah, my question was about the attendance sheets. Is there someplace online we can go get those, or how does that work?
Our office provides the the attendance reports to the chair and the MPU's zoning committee chair.
I meant the actual attendance sheets where folks sign in at in-person meetings.
Do you mean a blank?
Oh.
Yes, the blank ones.
Oh, we send
Oh.
those. Go ahead, Daniel.
Well, we send those directly to the MPU chairs that have in-person elements to their meetings. If you want a copy of any blank form, I'd be more than happy to provide it for you, Mr. Ross.
Yeah, and then I guess my next question is for the MPUs that have in-person meetings, does the city print enough agendas for the in-person attendees?
We have not had any MPU in-person meetings that have more than, I think the average is 10 people. So yeah, we print enough.
Okay.
It's a very, very small number for those that are meeting in person. In fact, I think we'll be sending out an update on our hybrid program this week. But the hybrid pilot was not what I would consider to be a very successful pilot. So we don't have very many MPUs that meet in person successfully.
Mrs. Burke?
Thanks.
My question is also about attendance. Are we supposed to be keeping track of who's attending the meetings? And are we supposed to be reporting that somewhere?
If your MPU has an attendance requirement to vote, the attendance reports are provided to the MPU leadership for the chair to perhaps send it to the secretary or whoever is tasked with making sure that the membership has obtained a certain amount of meetings under their belt before they can vote.
And would that hold for Zoom meetings as well?
Yes, Zoom produces a very easy to use spreadsheet. And I know that the majority of the times that I have seen an MPU tally the attendance month by month, they've been able to use those spreadsheets and be able to filter through rather easier than it was back in the day when you had to look through people's handwriting. Anybody else?
There's a,
Miss Clyde has a question. Oh, sorry,
All right.
Sam.
well, there's a question in the chat from Kimberly Tuttle. To whom should the MPU minutes be sent?
So I can answer that question. The MPUs are not required to submit their meeting minutes to the city. There is no requirement at all that you submit your meeting minutes to the city. If you do submit them, you'll send them to Daniel and we'll hold on to them for you, but you don't have to. You can keep it yourself.
Mrs. Clyde?
Yes, I was just wanting to piggyback off of comment from Leah, the changes that you are going to make or could potentially be coming down the pipe for the hybrid meeting. Is that still allowable for hybrid meetings, or is that going to change the ability to have them since the topic came up?
So allowable, yeah, there's no rule or policy preventing MPUs from having hybrid meetings or meeting. And we have one MPU that meets in person. We literally just had a debriefing meeting last, I think Thursday or Friday, on this topic of hybrid meetings. There are, I think, 3 NPUs that are one meeting fully in person, not online at all, just fully in person. And 3, I believe, that are meeting hybrid, but only one of those 3 has, I mean, obviously my description is subjective, but only one of the 3 has decent in-person turnout, with decent being an average of 10 people. All the others have, month after month, 3 people in the room, maybe 2 or 3, and like 40, 50, 60 online. So
Got it. Okay.
but yeah,
Thank
MPUs
you.
can still meet hybrid if they want to, and they can meet, in person if they want to. They can do it however they prefer.
Okay. Thank you.
Leah, I went to the next slide because I know how you feel about the questions for the
How do I feel about the questions? What does that mean?
The quiz
Oh,
question.
the quiz. Yeah, yeah. Who's doing this? Daniel?
That's you, Leah. It's Leah time.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. This is about
Let me
minutes, right?
take your word for it. I thought y'all just came off of minutes. I switched devices. I came back and we were talking about minutes. So I assumed that y'all were talking about minutes, but that's okay. So for record keeping, we definitely want to ensure that be eligible voters are. It makes for a very clunky meeting for members, officers to debate during a vote or right before a vote or worse yet after a vote on whether or not someone was eligible to vote. It also affects confidence in the process as well. So I highly encourage all of the secretaries or whoever is appointed to maintain attendance in the MPU to make sure that you're constantly keeping a list of eligible voters. Although this is not the election integrity class, I do also encourage you to somewhere around September-ish to publish a list of with your members of who your eligible voters are, so that people know in advance whether they are considered eligible or not and have time to cure it if there is a conflict. If I believe I'm eligible, incidentally, this just happened recently. Well, it happens all the time, but I experienced it myself where my name wasn't on the list and I thought it should have been. So you have to, you don't know that if you wait until, if you believe that you attend enough meetings and you believe that you're eligible and you get ready to vote and your name is not on this list that calls you eligible, it can definitely prompt some feelings of mistrust and other things, because a lot of times members forget that all of you are volunteers, that you don't clock in the morning to do this job, but that you're a volunteer doing the best that you can. And sometimes you can make mistakes, or sometimes you can overlook a name, or in this day, prior to Zoom, when we were meeting in person, oftentimes people's handwriting was difficult to read and we had a hard time understanding who was doing what. And then now that we're in Zoom days, we get people logging in from different devices with different names, or calling in from a phone this time and joining with the computer another time, and the secretary doesn't realize that it's the same person, etc. So just make sure that you're keeping a steady list of eligible voters. Make sure that your members are receiving notice of the meetings regularly. We do have a distribution list. If you register to receive updates every month, we will send out a monthly notice of meetings. I strongly encourage all of you to register for that list so that you'll get those monthly reminders. The reason for that, of course, those of you that are here are usually the ones that know when meetings are happening more so than anyone else would. But I have seen situations where meetings are canceled, and because you weren't plugged into the chair or whatever, you may not have realized that it was canceled, or people assume that it's canceled because it's a holiday, but it ends up not being canceled because it's not a holiday that the city observes or that the MPU observes, and the meeting actually happens. I've seen that happen a few times as well. So it's a good idea to sign up to get those meeting notices. You want to make sure that your members get copies of minutes. You definitely want to collect contact information MPU requires you to give per bylaws, and anything else that your bylaws require you to give. You want to make sure, or to do, or to have, you want to make sure that you have that ready. Samantha?
It's on the next screen on my end.
Okay,
She keeps freezing
great,
up.
thank you. Am I freezing? No, okay, great. Someone let me know if I do freeze,
Am I freezing? So are you all saying
by the
I'm
way.
freezing?
No, Leah was freezing up a couple of times when
Pardon?
she was speaking. She was delayed, and it's like she was freezing up when she was speaking.
So
Leah was
better yet,
freezing up
Daniel, why don't you
during-
teach this? Just Daniel, go ahead and teach it. Daniel, go ahead and teach it. Go ahead, Daniel.
All
You got it.
right.
You can do it.
I got it. I can do it. All right. Record keeping for not vital, virtual meetings. What are some of the things you do during the meeting? During the meeting, you want to ensure that all speakers state their names before making or seconding a motion or before making comments. You also want to record the exact wording of all motions and the name of the people making and seconding the motions. Also ensure that those who make or second the motions are eligible voters or members. Ensure all members have minutes and opportunity to review them. Know in advance how votes will be cast and who will count. Record important information like dates, email addresses, phone numbers, and names in the chat. Make a financial report and other duties that your bylaws may list out.
Shonda Williams has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I had, I guess, two questions now. I wanted to know if this PowerPoint will be sent out in the for the people who are here.
Yes, ma'am.
And Ms. LaRue spoke on signing up to receive messages for. I got confused about what she was saying sign up for. I'm sorry, I kind of lost it for a second.
Well, I know that there is an opt-in for MPU members or anybody really to receive reminders, monthly reminders that their MPU meeting will be taking place in the next 5 business days. If anybody is interested if anyone at your MPU is interested in opting in, just forward them to me and I'll be more than happy to do that. I will put in the chat the specific email address that you may want to use. But at the end of the day, if you send it to either that email address or my own email address, it's going to get processed regardless.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Right. So after the meeting, what are some of the most important things to do? You want to send draft minutes to the executive board and or all the members, depending on how your bylaws dictate that or your MPU's individual practice. You want to process attendance records as applicable. As we mentioned earlier, if your MPU tracks the number of meetings that a member has attended in order to vote, then you would want to process this accordingly so you can figure out who's going to be able to vote next meeting. You also want to update that eligible voters list. So if anyone has a question on that, you can provide that to them. And any other duties that are listed in your bylaws. Next. All right, Mentimeter is going to do a thing, y'all, so I'm excited. Question 5 out of 5. Are y'all ready? Now, Sam, I'm going to let you say what Mentimeter is saying because I don't know what Mentimeter is saying. All I know is that there are 16 players that are ready, Sam.
It is doing a thing. All right.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Answer faster. Press enter. Okay.
Ooh.
What should be recorded during a meeting to ensure accurate documentation? And your options are attendance only, participants' favorite quotes, exact wording of motions and names of movers and seconders are meeting venue details.
Now, Sam, you're on mute.
Exact wording of motions and names of movers and seconders. Sometimes we do like to know your participants' favorite quotes, but not in this moment.
All right, so we're back to the meeting minutes section. All right, so the meeting minutes are the official history and permanent record of the MPU, and they can be invaluable for reference, evaluation, and future planning. As the secretary, and I am addressing the secretary, listen to me, secretary. As the secretary, it is your responsibility to take minutes at all general, special, and emergency meetings, distribute minutes for review, and incorporate suggested changes into the final documents. I hope I made that as formal as I could. Next. What should the minutes include? Minutes should not include every detail or statement made at a meeting, but rather a brief summary of discussions and actions taken. Additionally, meeting minutes should include type of meeting, such as a general body meeting or a board, committee, or special called meeting, the date and location of the meeting, officers present and the attendance log, time of call to order and adjournment, and who prepared the minutes. So be sure to put your name. Next, the meeting content. Minutes should include the approval of previous meeting minutes, all motions made, including the exact wording of the motion, the names of the members that made and seconded the motion, summary of discussion, if applicable, vote counts, number in favor, number opposed, and any abstentions, summary of key points from any reports or presentations given, maybe 1 or 2 sentences, and be sure to include the presenter's name, titles, and or affiliations. Any commitments made by presenters, members, or any other persons present, and table discussions for future agenda items. Oh, that's or, not for. Or table discussions or future agenda items. Next. Here are examples of some meeting minutes that Ms. LaRue and I thought were very thorough. So are some examples of MPUL's minutes. These will be in your packet if you want to inspect them a little closer. I know it's a little hard to read. I think there may be a second set. Sam, click on the arrow, please. No, there's just MPUL. Record retention, all roles. Retaining accurate and complete records will protect you and your MPU if a decision or action is ever called into question or reviewed for validity. As an officer, it is your responsibility to compile and retain all MPU meeting records under your purview, submit said records to your board, program coordinator, and or planner in a timely manner, and pass those records along to your successor. Next. I believe there's a question in the chat.
Let's see if I can pull up the chat. Hold on 1 second. What is the financial report that is referenced?
That's a great question. Ms. LaRue?
Yeah, it just depends on the MPU. Some MPUs have financial reports. Some of them have finances. and therefore financial reports.
And as meetings have gone hybrid, does the city recommend that NPUs save the recordings of their meetings locally as well?
That, oh, go ahead, Lee.
We don't, so pardon me, y'all, for having my camera off. It's just because of the bandwidth. I think it's easier to have it off. We don't have a recommendation on whether NPUs save the recordings. Obviously, it has been very helpful. There have been many times when we've had to pull a recording of a meeting to figure out exactly what happened in debate or exactly what the sentiment of the NPU was or what the motion was. It may not have been clearly. Honestly, sometimes even the members are confused about what the motion is at the end. So there have been times that the recordings have been very, very helpful, but we also recognize that there isn't a whole lot of space. I'm sorry, that recordings take a lot of space and that many NPUs don't have the space to store those recordings. We are working on solutions for that, but for right now, no, we're not recommending that NPUs store their recordings. We don't have any recommendation on that at all.
Mrs. Brooks?
Yes, thank you. Question about minutes. There's always a tendency when you're supposed to do like a summary of presentations that it becomes very subjective. So I just wonder how to try to get those to stay objective. And I think Robert's rules is saying not to really record what people say in debate and nor their names. Is this something that is consistent with what we're supposed to be doing?
So what is most important for minutes is recording the action taken. Who made the motion? Who seconded the motion? What was the voting outcome? And what is the decision that was made, or the recommendation in this case that was made? That's what we're looking for in minutes. That's definitely what you'll want to see in terms of your historic documents, like looking back on the meeting and on what happened. That's what you'll want to know. The other part, though, is that I think it's important, just because of the nature of these meetings, oftentimes there are commitments made, whether by developers, by other applicants, by the city officials. And when those commitments are made, I think it's important to document that in the minutes as well. I would document that very objectively. Such and such person, John Doe, representing the Department of Transportation, stated that, open quotes, and whatever the quote was, and end quotes. It doesn't really get more objective than that, but I would be careful to say, members felt like this whole project is a scam, or members didn't like what the developer said or didn't like his tone of voice. All of that is subjective. I would never encourage an NPU to record things like that in meeting minutes.
And I'm just also curious about the AI component that might be coming into the minutes now. The AI companion, I don't know what that means. And I don't know, for example, will minutes be generated by AI, or are the secretaries still going to be generating minutes?
So I don't know. I know of at least one NPU that uses AI for their minutes. You certainly could. NPUs can do minutes however they wish. You can definitely do, and I know NPUs that use recordings as their minutes. There are NPUs that use the voting report, the planner's voting report, as their minutes. I don't really like that too much, but some do it. And I will tell you, I agree with the chair of NPUY, Ms. Weisswasser, saying in the chat right now that the AI in Zoom is not good for minutes. I agree with that. Some of the other AI tools that I've seen people use for minutes are not good, in my opinion. I will say it's better than nothing, and I would just encourage you to look it over before you adopt it. Like really look it over before you share it or adopt it to make sure that AI didn't misquote people, use the wrong names, mistranslate or misinterpret the motions that are made, etc. Mr. Jones?
Can you hear me? I recently had a W-9 request, IRS form, a request from the federal government sent to me. I was curious to know, are any of the City of Atlanta municipal government neighborhood planning units actually an actual organization that's like incorporated at the clerk's office, at the DeKalb County clerk's office, or the Fulton County clerk's office? Or am I really thinking about a tax allocation district? I really want to, because there was this great idea about the Mo and Flow particular situation where basically if you're like, in the certain MPUs, someone set up a program that's the person's over 62 years of age, they will pay someone to cut their grass for them. I was just curious, like, does any MPU have a actual bank account that's an organization like with $100,000 in it? Because I think we could get that going, but I just wanted to figure out, is any MPU currently an organization that's like listed in the Fulton County Clerk's office as a actual organization?
Okay. I understand the question. There are, to my knowledge, MPUs that have bank accounts. There are, to my knowledge, MPUs that register themselves with the state and create nonprofit organizations and incorporate as organizations. Those organizations are not affiliates of the City of Atlanta. They're not in any way affiliated with the City of Atlanta. That's something that a group of neighbors do or decide to do on their own. Any other questions from anybody else? Are there any questions in the chat? Or do you record instances of people chronically speaking out of order in order to document the misbehavior? You can record anything that is sought to be documented. If a member would like to make a motion to let the record reflect something, you can reflect it in that way. There are probably other ways to request that the record reflect something in Robert's rules. I don't have my copy handy, so I couldn't look into that right this moment, but I can definitely get an answer to you on that, Adrian. But honestly, you could just ask that the record reflect that a member is violating the bylaws and have that documented in the minutes. And I would suggest that it could be a good idea to do that if someone's having a bad day, or an item or an issue has them particularly passionate. That's one thing. But if you have an issue ongoing, you do want at some point to document that, because if you look to take action in a future meeting and there's no record of problems in the past, it's going to be a bit more challenging for you to make the case for the members.
We did have a question in the chat. Can someone give an example of how neighbors, constituents vote in their MPU? Some of our members don't want others seeing their vote and so on. And we actually have a mechanism in place that we use to vote. Leah, if you want to expound on it.
Sure. So I would suggest that the bylaws that matter should be addressed in the bylaws. If members feel strongly that their meetings, that their votes should be confidential or cast in secret, then they should amend their bylaws to require that. Otherwise, they can vote however the MPU chooses to vote, or whatever, depending upon what the bylaws say. You can use the polling feature. I don't know whether I would defer to someone else from my team to answer whether the Zoom polling feature has a secret voting feature. I know that you can definitely find out who voted using Zoom. I don't know whether there's a way to change that so that you can not find out how they voted. That I'm not sure of, but we do. What Samantha was referring to was Election Buddy, which we allow MPUs. Okay, so Nicole is saying that it does allow anonymous. Yeah, I know it's hidden during the meeting. So during the meeting, I know it's hidden, but if my position is that my vote should be confidential, then I don't want other people to know how I voted after the meeting, a month later, a year later, whenever. If it's confidential, I want it to be confidential. The only mechanism that I'm aware of that allows that is Election Buddy, but it looks like Nicole is saying that they do have an anonymous option as well. So we can look into that. I don't know whose question that was, though. I didn't see it in the chat, but we can look into that and get back to them to confirm. Or when you set up the question, you can select anonymous. Great.
Zach?
How do you limit voters to eligible voters with the poll? You don't. And I know because every time I'm in a meeting that uses a poll, it pops up on the screen, and a lot of people click abstain, which like I'm not going to click abstain because I'm not a member of your MPU, so I'm not abstaining. I'm not voting at all. I don't have a right to vote in your election, so I don't click anything. I just close it out. But a lot of people don't know that, and they will click abstain. But other people may believe that they're eligible and they're not, and they'll actually vote on a voting item, a voting matter. And you really won't know that until you pull the report afterward to see who voted. And I guess if it's anonymous, I don't know that you'd even be able to do it that way. So I don't know. I think that works better for people who, for MPUs that don't consider that a problem.
Zach has his hand raised. Zach?
Yes, so I have a question again about neighborhood associations and just clarifying my understanding of like the MPU's relationship to them. We have a couple of neighborhoods in our community that have just ongoing neighborhood association issues. Is there anything that says we have to in any way recognize any of them? Like, could we just run our meeting as though neighborhood associations aren't, like, things are on our agenda, the community gives input? Is there anything that says we have to spend time in our meeting talking about neighborhood associations, or could we just divorce our meetings from that altogether?
Ooh, such harsh language. My goodness.
Sometimes a divorce is good. A new beginning.
So there is nothing in code that requires NPUs to formalize their.
And I apologize. And to be clear, I mean, like not talking about not picking or choosing favorites, just not engaging any neighborhood association.
Right, I understand.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's the direction that my answer is going in. Otherwise, my answer would be different. But if there's nothing in code that requires NPUs to formalize relationships with neighborhood associations. I would definitely want to have an extensive conversation with the NPU before they explore going in that direction, because it definitely could have some implications that I don't think the Department of City Planning would support. But to be very clear, there are certainly NPUs that do not operate with a formalized relationship with neighborhood associations. There's at least one that I can think of right now, if not more. Actually, yeah, there are two that I can think of right now that don't have formalized relationships with their neighborhood associations. Yeah.
Any more hands?
Ms. Mitchell. Yep, D was one of the two I was thinking, Mr. Martin. Although
yes,
I wouldn't. Go ahead, Ms. Mitchell.
I'm sorry, Ms. LaRue. Go ahead and finish.
No. That's okay. You go ahead. I was going to go down a rabbit hole with Mr. Martin.
Okay, well, my brief question is, what IT or technical resources are available for the individual MPUs? Like, for example, Mr. Vasquez mentioned about reporting that we could pull within Zoom for attendance. Is there like a tutorial or something that we can easily access on the MPU website that will give us that information?
What MPU are you in?
H.
So we pull your attendance. You don't need to.
Okay.
Yeah, we pull your attendance for you. Zoom does have tons of tutorials, but you wouldn't need it for that.
No, I was speaking like as far as the reporting. Is there other reports that Zoom can offer that gives us or that we have access to that we may or may not be knowledgeable of? And I just use that one as an example.
Yeah, so we do have some very far more knowledgeable than I folks on our team who offer training and support to MPUs. If you do need help, training, support, or anything related to Zoom or technology, just let us know and we'll connect you and get you scheduled for some training. We definitely offer training.
Okay. Now, last question, Ms. LaRue. With in regards to the maps for the MPU. So say, for example, the MPU H map that's available on the site. Is there any way that information can be more concise as to the streets that are available in each neighborhood cluster that makes up MPU H?
Is there any
And
way that what? Sorry,
is that
sorry, would
is
you mind repeating that?
sure. Based upon the MPUH mapping that's available on the website, are there any reports that we can get access to that will give us a more concise or that we can get more concise data that will specifically tell us like what streets are located within Fairburn Heights community that's a cluster in MPUH? If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, you can send us an email. We can talk about that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Jones.
And I want to say that there was a great MPU course about the GIS graphic maps or whatnot that could also help with that. But that was just a statement behind that particular question from my MPUH member.
Our intro to
Yeah, Yep, I was just about to say that, Sam. Carry on.
which also we have online. So if you want to go back and look at any of our old courses, that course specifically is also on our YouTube page as well from the last 3 years. So you can actually see the course at any given point since we've offered it. Ms. Brooks has a question. What do you mean by we pull attendance? What else gets pulled? Oh,
Yeah, I don't understand that question.
Okay, Leah, a few minutes ago, you said somebody was asking about attendance records and you said, oh, it's okay, we pull attendance. So I don't know what that means. And
it means that we download the attendance from the Zoom account and we send it to the MPU.
Okay, so that's of everybody in the room. Does it also include how everybody voted when there was a show of hands?
No,
it's just the room attendance.
Yes, it's just the room attendance. It shows, it's a pretty generic report. It shows what time people got in, what time they left, the total number of minutes they were in the meeting, and the email address or phone number that they used to access the meeting. And I will say this much. We do not pull, oh, and somebody was just reminding me to say that. So I definitely want to say that. We do not pull any other reports from Zoom because if we have it, we are required by state law to provide it upon request. A lot of MPUs have registration forms and whatnot that request a lot of information from MPUs. And, you know, it's definitely a two-edged sword, if you will. It's unfortunate. I would love for MPUs to have all the information that they're trying to collect about their neighbors. And if it's important to you to have that, we can work with you to help you figure out other ways to get that information, but we don't want to have it. Because if we have it, we have to share it. And we've been down the road a million times. There is no way. It is the city's interpretation that there is no way for us to not share information if we have it in our possession, even if it includes, you know, information that you didn't necessarily want to share. So that's that. So the only thing we pull are the attendance records. And I think Samantha, when we're closing out, we'll encourage you to attend some of our upcoming classes. But I see that Zach, the chairperson of MPUH, put it in the chat. I'm sorry, X.
Yes.
My bad. So sorry. But I will point out, I fully agree with him 100% in that our class tomorrow is the Introduction to the Comprehensive Development Plan course. It will be taught by the city's chief planner, our commissioner of city planning, Janae Prince. It is a really, really good class that does a really, really good deep dive into what comprehensive planning is and what the city's planning process is, the components of our plan, et cetera. It's a really good class, and I highly encourage all of you to attend that class tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. And are there any other questions on this fun stuff? No? Okay, so while Samantha moves on, oh, wait a minute now. Is there a conversation about pulling reports yourself? No. Do not do that. Please. Definitely do not. To be clear, please do not pull any reports from Zoom yourself. The purpose of having the password is so that you can enter the room. And that's the only reason for you to have the password, is only to enter the room. So please do not use it for anything else at all. So I appreciate that. All right, Sam, you're up.
So speaking of MP University courses, tomorrow we have our Introduction to Comprehensive Development Planning. That is at from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Zoom. The registration is still open. I'm going to actually keep it open until noon tomorrow. But if you know some people that may want to get on this course or may be interested in, please send them to mpuatlanta.org. Following that, we have next week another new course, the History of Neighborhood Planning Units, who's actually going to be taught by Cal, who I thought was on here. He may still be on here. So he's actually teaching that course on next Thursday, February 8th, 2024 from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., also on Zoom. And then we have our Zoning Fundamentals, which is a 3-part series course. And that is Tuesday, February 13th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Zoom. Then we have a course that we partner with Atlanta Legal Aid, Reducing Property Taxes with Homestead Tax Exemptions and Appeals. And that is Thursday, March 14th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Zoom. And then to close out March, we have our Building Permits and a Seller for Beginners course, which is Thursday, March 28th, 2024, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Zoom. Leah, did you want to talk about our 50th event?
What I do want to talk about is Mr. Snyder, you showing yourself to be a rookie, Mr. Snyder. All of our classes are on are streamed live on Facebook and uploaded to Zoom immediately following the class. There are a couple of exceptions for classes like this that are training for specific groups of people. But any class that we have, you can watch that class, and any class that we've taught since 2019 can be found on Zoom under MPU Atlanta. So yes, there is another way to see the class, and it is on Zoom not Zoom, YouTube. Did I say Zoom the first time? I meant to say YouTube. My apologies. On YouTube. Thank you. At MPU Atlanta. I did want to say though, Sam, on the previous slide, there was something I was going to say. I don't remember what it was. Can you go back one? Oh, zoning fundamentals. On the zoning fundamentals class, that is a 3-part class, as Samantha said. I think it's 4 parts this year, right? Isn't there a 4th? Yeah, the mobile workshop. Right. So it's a 4-part class. I want to point this out. You cannot take zoning fundamentals 1 is a prerequisite to those other 3 classes. You cannot take zoning 2, the zoning lab, or the zoning mobile workshop if you have not taken zoning fundamentals 1. So I highly encourage you, especially if you are an MPU chairperson, a zoning chairperson, or if you vote on zoning items at your NPU, I highly encourage you to take zoning fundamentals 1 to get that information. All righty. Thanks, Sam. You can move on to the 50th anniversary. As I mentioned at the beginning of the class, we are celebrating this year, all year long, the 50th anniversary of the Neighborhood Planning Unit System, which is also the 50th anniversary of our, well, kind of the 50th anniversary of our CDP. We started the work on it in 1974. So we will be kicking that off on February 29th of 2024. And then on Monday, March 18th, we'll have our public engagement day, which is going to be super duper cool. It'll be at City Hall. So if you do not have one of those pesky things called a job during the daytime and you'd like to come to City Hall on Monday, that is also a council meeting day. So we're hoping that people will come and hang out with us a bit, and also work a little bit of civic participation into your schedule and go attend the Atlanta City Council meeting for March 18th. We'll also have a panel discussion on Thursday. I forget the name of that panel discussion, but there is a panel discussion with some legacy leaders of the MPU system on Thursday, the 21st. And the legacy continues. All right, at Maynard Jackson High School, we're having Maynard Jackson Day and doing some youth engagement on Friday, the 22nd. So those are our upcoming events for the 50th anniversary. If you don't know, we have divided the year into 3 phases. The first phase being a legacy of love, where we're doing a look back into the origins of the MPU system. And then the second phase, which will begin in May, will be the present day, when we're celebrating our current MPU leaders and celebrating our MPU system. And then, of course, celebrating the actual anniversary of the legislation, which was August 13th. And in the end, in our third phase, we will start planning for our future, for the future of the MPU system and what that will look like. All right, that's it for me. Please do make sure you follow us on social media. We're working pretty hard to get our social media follower numbers up and our engagement increased. That's one of the measures of our success in the work that we do. So if you do not follow us on your preferred platform, Facebook, Instagram, I think Twitter is now called X, TikTok, and whatnot, please do follow us on those platforms. Any other questions before we exit stage left?
Ms. Mitchell?
No, Ms. Mitchell?
Ms. LaRue, one quick question about, well, in regards to the 50th year celebration or some of the scheduled activities that's being planned. Are there any possibilities or considerations that to help engage more residents within the MPUs to participate in not just the meetings, but community activities or whatnot? Are there any per se MPU swag bag gifts or anything of that nature to kind of drive participation in our local MPUs? Let's say like water bottles or different things of that nature that can be used maybe as a incentive.
We have items that we give away at all of our events.
Okay.
Pretty much any event we have. And I think you may have asked one of my team members that same question. So my answer will be whatever they told you. Whatever events we have, we
Well, pretty much what I was asking more so in detail was like for some of the community events that's taking place. Like it would be nice to see representation out for MPU. So when people have questions about it, they can kind of come up and register for their current MPU. And most often those activities are taking place on Saturdays.
So if I'm and I'm sorry, there's a lag on my end because I have a weak internet signal and it's causing me to sound like I'm cutting you off. I don't mean to do that. I apologize. It sounds like what you're asking for is whether or not we have a supply of items that we can give to MPUs to distribute in their communities. If that is the question, the answer to that is no. We do have items that we give out at events that we attend, whether they are community festivals or other events. We do attend those block parties and festivals and other community events, and we usually bring goodies with us and distribute them there. We also have a community impact grant that allows MPUs to apply for funding to purchase items and other things that they may want to distribute to the public.
You answered it, Ms. LaRue. My answer was your second response was in regards to community outreach more so. So you answered it.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Anybody?
And we did one other thing I'll point out, because one of the people who helped us get to the finish line is on this call, so I won't hesitate to shout her out a bit. One problem that we've had historically, and certainly since I've been in this role, is that there is only one day out of the month, not counting Friday, Saturday, Sundays, and that's the second Thursday. It makes it difficult for city departments, for, you know what, let me turn off all the cameras because I can see that I'm
lagging.
I mean, not turn off your cameras. I meant turn it off on my end. That's what I meant. Sorry. Okay. It makes it difficult for city departments to engage when they want to have citywide meetings or citywide. Sometimes a department will want to host a dinner for all the MPU chairs, or they'll want to have a citywide. When we did our zoning 2.0 sessions, we want to do those on nights where there are no MPU meetings. It's very difficult to do that, especially the more that we have going on, the more projects and initiatives we have going on. It makes it really challenging for us to find dates to have these meetings. Even other agencies and organizations that are outside of the city of Atlanta use the MPU schedule for their citywide meetings. And it's a challenge because there's only one night per month where you can do that. So we asked several MPUs, MPU H being one of them, by the way, we asked several MPUs if they would consider moving their meeting day to a different day so that that day would be open and meeting free, so that other agencies and city departments could use that night of the month to have citywide meetings. We only ask the ones that meet on a night where no other MPU meets, and H is one of those. So we did ask H. And to make it easier for the MPUs that were willing to change their meeting date, we offered for them something that we haven't done since I've been around, which is an MPU-wide outreach package. We offered lawn signs, banners, vinyl banners. We offered lawn signs, vinyl banners, robocalls, text messaging campaigns, and the like. Some other things that I can't remember right now. I think some swag as well to give away to members, to make sure that we're getting the word out so that they know that our meeting day is changed. We don't want to lose people from changing the day because they didn't know. We want to make sure that we're getting the word out. But it also, and some door hangers, but it also does double duty because it allows us to get signage up and door hangers and whatnot in an MPU where people may not even know that the MPU exists, etc. I would love to do that citywide. We don't have a budget or the human resources to do that. So we offered it as an incentive for those MPUs that were willing to change their meeting day. MPU Y was the first one to carry us to the finish line. So kudos, celebration, clap, clap, clap for MPU Y, which will be the first recipients of our outreach kit. They will receive a full outreach kit from the city of Atlanta to help get the word out in NPUY, complete with a little bit of swag and some lawn signs and banners and whatnot. So that was promised to all of those MPUs in writing, the ones that were willing to move their dates. And as I said, MPUY was the first to carry it to the finish line. Mr. Jones and then Mr. Sumlin.
Okay, my question piggybacks on the I think the secretary of MPU, City of Atlanta Municipal Government Planning Unit H, secretary. Basically, so is it possible for you guys? Because basically, I think the most important thing that she was looking for, that's Miss Mitchell. I think that was most important was the actual Atlanta playbook that was really helpful. So could you guys? Is there a way to put in writing that, because we do have events on Saturdays, especially about the environment, the human-induced climate change that's happening on planet Earth. But basically, is it possible for City of Atlanta municipal government to give out those Atlanta playbooks? There's two different versions.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll set it up for us. Okay, cool, no problem. Thank you.
Next, no problem, Mr. Sumlin.
Hey, good evening. Quick question. As far as parking for persons with disabilities, has that ever been something that has come up for you all when you're planning events down at City Hall?
It's funny you should say that because somebody just asked me about that maybe a month ago or so. In the last month, I heard someone, I think it had to do with the bike lanes, if I remember correctly. I may have an email on it, but we have a handful of active officers in the MPU system who have physical disabilities or difficulty accessing, buildings and whatnot using traditional means like stairs and all that other stuff, obstacles that get in the way. So it has been discussed. I don't know. I'm not really, honestly, I am physically able-bodied and therefore privileged enough to not ever have had to think about what that experience is like coming into City Hall. So I'll apologize for that. I'm not really prepared to answer that because I've never had to give that thought before. But we do have a mayor's office of it's Mayor's Office of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And that office definitely does a lot of work to examine differently abled people. In fact, I just had a conversation with the deputy executive director about some different abilities in my own office, and asking them to examine that a little closer and see what we can do to be more inclusive. So they are very committed. That the leader of that group, Candace Stansfield, is absolutely amazing and so committed to inclusion and inclusive practices. So I'm not sure what was driving your question, but if you want to email me, I'm happy to connect you with Candace, and I'm definitely happy to advocate for more accessibility.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Miss Holiday and then Miss Harris.
And you know, when you bring up accessibility, I jump in immediately.
I wasn't going to call you out, Miss Holiday, but I was hoping.
But you know I'm going to do it.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it.
I have never found, I've been told where the accessible parking is, and I have never found one of the parking places available. And with the change to using a side ramp on a van, it is even more complicated. It is even less available. So as they are looking at this, we need really to be very attentive, not to saying we have these parking spaces, but whether or not they are truly available and accessible.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And if you could email me too, I'll connect all three of you. I mean, both of you and Mr. Sumlin, to Candace. I feel very confident telling you that she is just so amazing. She's been great with employees. I think that she, granted, a lot of change takes time. So I won't, I want to manage expectations and not expect a miracle tomorrow. But what I've learned about being at City Hall is that the very first step is finding someone who cares. And Candace really cares. So I'll feel really good about connecting y'all. And Jennifer, just send me an email as well, please. And that's just so I won't forget who I asked to follow up. Miss Harris. And thank you, Miss Holiday, for speaking up on that. Appreciate it. Miss Harris.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question. I know there's a lot of events, and the event you had last week for the reception and the proclamation. It was a great event. One of my questions is parking. I know you just mentioned about the bicycle lane, where that used to be a park where if you kind of drove around the block a couple times, you perhaps could get a parking space, but now that's coned off. And sometimes when you come downtown, you have a lot of people that are walking around, and in that parking deck, I don't feel really comfortable and safe in that parking deck because I don't see a lot of people patrolling it. So that was one of my concerns. And the last thing is, since we're focusing on the 50th and so much is going on, my question is, there on these designated days that we're coming downtown, I know when I come down and paying that parking, I'm paying like $13. Is there anything that can subsidize people coming down for the meeting on special days when you're calling us to come down?
I wish.
I do too.
I really do wish. Honestly, I've been, and I have the emails to show it. I have been an advocate for some kind of relief, even for my employees, as it relates to parking, because parking is it's very expensive at City Hall. And employees don't get free parking. We pay to park to come to work. And when MPUs are coming to City Hall for meetings and whatnot, you all are paying to come to City Hall as well. If you want to participate in an MPU, in a council meeting or any of that stuff, you also have to pay to park there. I would be remiss if I didn't point out. In fact, I just had this conversation with an employee, Morgan today. Today, we had this very conversation. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that as a representative of the Department of City Planning, I have to encourage those that are able-bodied to bike to City Hall, to take MARTA to City Hall, et cetera, scooters and whatnot, roller skates, walking, whatever you can do to get there. But I would also point out that not everyone is able to do that. And don't start calling names in the chat unless you're going to call all the names of my staff that takes bikes to work, because it's not just Kip. I beg your pardon. My team is, I'm saying it with my chest, but my team takes MARTA to work. They walk, they bike, etc.
I'm talking about the senior citizens when we're coming. I'm not talking about city council.
I got off track, Miss Harris. That was Mr. Martin's fault. He was talking in the chat.
I wasn't talking about like the regular city council meeting, like when there's special meetings like last
you're talking
Monday.
about events for, yes,
Right.
I understand.
I'm not
no,
saying
there is
free, but anything other than, because
so
those
the
dollars
answer
add
is
up for
the
senior
answer is
citizens.
no, and I feel confident saying that the answer is no, because I went down this road in 2019 when I first came into this role. The Atlanta Planning Advisory Board meets at City Hall. They are a board of volunteers whose meetings are held at City Hall, and basically you're essentially required to pay for parking if you want to be on this board. And so what I did was ask our then commissioner if we could validate parking, and the answer that I got was yes. And we validated parking for I don't know how many meetings before another department nixed it, basically, and pointed to policy that I hadn't been aware of. But we can't subsidize parking for guests. We can't validate parking for guests or any of that stuff. It's just not something that I'm not aware of a solution for that right now. No, we did not validate MARTA, Mr. Martin. That's correct.
Mr. Sumlin?
Ms. LaRue, I did want to say something else that I left out. There was no parking for me. And so just so happened that particular day, because I generally try to drive myself, I did have a driver. And so we pulled up right in front of City Hall, like right in front of their front doors, and we stopped. And an officer came out from Atlanta Police, and a sergeant, and he came out and he walked up very courteous, and he says, "Hey, can I help you?" And I just told him, I said, "Hey, I'm disabled, and I'm here for the 50th celebration of the NPUs, and it's going to be difficult for me to ambulate any further than right here at this front door." He says, "Sir, if you will tell your driver to circle this block, I'm going to go move this cone, and you can park right here in this space, and you can come right in this front door. And if you need anything from me, I'll be standing right there waiting." And so,
wow.
And I'm going to, I was going to send you an email on that, but since we're already talking about it, I'll just tell you that he was very courteous. He was very pleasant. He was very understanding. He didn't have a nasty attitude. He didn't have a disdain. He was no problem. Just circle the block, and as soon as you guys come back, I'm gonna move this cone. You can park right here, and you can come right on in this door. And so that was for me, because I asked the question, because of course we were blocking the street. And so he came out, and again, he wasn't nasty. He just simply asked, how could he help? And I told him. So I just want to let you know that. I don't know who supervises the officers that work directly at City Hall, but I did want to put it in writing that he was a very nice guy. Even when I had to come into the city council chambers, Sergeant Peters.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing that, and I'll be sure to let them know, but especially if you send me an email, which I prefer, I can pass it along to all the right folks. But thank you for letting me know that, Mr. Sumlin. Mr. Jones has the last question, and then I have to run inside because the guests are waiting for me. I will point out my team is still available to answer questions up until 8 o'clock, but I do need to run inside. Mr. Jones,
So,
are you?
Yeah, I'm ready. So basically, I wanted to make sure I will make sure I personally send an email out to the mayor as well as the chief of police for the City of Atlanta police officers about Sergeant Peterson's work with persons with disability.
Okay, you can send that to me if you want. I don't know if, I mean, you can send it to whoever you want.
I will. I'll send it to all three. I'll send it to Daniel as well as you, as well as the mayor and the chief of police for the City of Atlanta municipal government, since I got them a 30% pay raise. Go for it.
Okay, go for it. All right. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate that. I never ever take for granted that after a long day of work, that anybody would take the time to attend a class to learn how to better serve their community. It's such a big deal that you all would do that. So thank you for being here. Of course, thank you to my team. If you are new to serving your NPU, congratulations on your election, number one, but most importantly, thank you for stepping up to serve your community. These NPUs simply do not work. They do not exist. They fall apart without all of you. With no volunteers, the NPU system simply does not exist. I try to remind people at City Hall of that all the time, and I'll say it out loud in your presence. Without you, the NPU system does not exist. So thank you so much for all that you do, and please let us know how we can serve you. Good night, everybody.
Also, everyone, please take the survey. I put it in the chat, but you also received an email as well, which will also have the link to our YouTube page, as well as our NPUatlanta.org page, where you can register for any upcoming courses. So everyone, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.